A champion rarely loses form overnight, yet that's exactly what has left MotoGP analysts puzzled. Francesco "Pecco" Bagnaia, once one of the most stable and commanding riders on the grid, is now at the center of an unexpected downturn that has reshaped the narrative of the 2025 MotoGP season. Over the past few years, Bagnaia has built a reputation for precision, calm control, and an almost mathematical approach to racecraft. But in recent months, his performances have shifted in ways that have prompted questions from fans, journalists, and even fellow riders. This isn't the usual dip that athletes sometimes experience. This is a dramatic fall in competitiveness from a rider who once appeared unshakable. As reports continue to emerge from inside the paddock, the mystery deepens. Ducati has publicly affirmed their efforts, Bagnaia has openly admitted confusion, and rivals have expressed concern rather than rivalry. In professional racing, where data, telemetry, and analytics usually have clear answers, Bagnaia's sudden inconsistency stands out precisely because nothing so far provides a definitive explanation. This report will outline the key turning points, the evidence available so far, and the ongoing speculation surrounding one of the most unexpected performance collapses MotoGP has witnessed in recent years. At the height of his career, Bagnaia looked nearly untouchable, which makes today's situation even harder to reconcile. Before the turbulence of the 2025 season, Bagnaia's trajectory suggested he was building a long-term legacy. His championship victories in 2022 and 2023 positioned him as Ducati's most reliable star, capable of handling pressure while delivering consistent results. Entering the new season, expectations were not just high, they were firmly rooted in the belief that he was entering his prime. Analysts frequently described him as a strategic rider, balancing aggression with control, and rarely demonstrating the kind of unpredictable form that has surfaced recently. Bagnaia also joined forces with a strengthened factory Ducati lineup, adding even more optimism to his prospects. With additional experience under his belt, improved technical support, and a machine considered one of the sharpest on the grid, the anticipation for another title run felt justified. Yet, the stark contrast between past performance and the difficulties he now faces raises questions few could have predicted. Observers are now revisiting the early months of the season to identify the first hints of instability, clues that may help explain how such a dependable competitor ended up in such an unusual slump. The first warnings didn't look catastrophic, but they were the beginning of a pattern that would soon escalate. The earliest signs of Bagnaia's struggle emerged quietly. At first, they appeared as minor inconsistencies, the type of fluctuations that riders typically iron out within a few rounds. However, these irregular results became more noticeable as the season progressed. After a strong win in Japan, a performance reminiscent of his championship form, Bagnaia unexpectedly faltered in Indonesia and Australia. Reports from those rounds described difficulty generating pace, even during sessions where the Ducati historically excelled. What seemed like a temporary dip soon revealed deeper issues, as inconsistency began to overshadow strategy. Journalists present at the track described a sense of confusion within the team, not panic, but concern that something fundamental wasn't clicking. Bagnaia himself addressed the media with unusual uncertainty, acknowledging the lack of pace without identifying a root cause. From the sidelines, analysts observed that while other riders adapted to track conditions and evolving tire demands, Bagnaia couldn't replicate the adaptability that once defined his championship runs. Though subtle at the time, these weekends marked the turning point where curiosity shifted to concern, laying the groundwork for a much broader mystery. Inside the Ducati garage, engineers worked overtime, yet the data still failed to explain Bagnaia's missing pace. As the season unfolded, Ducati's leadership became increasingly vocal about their efforts to support Bagnaia. Team manager Davide Tardozzi stated publicly that every possible adjustment had been explored, from electronics to ergonomics, in hopes of restoring confidence. Despite these efforts, Bagnaia repeatedly mentioned that something still didn't feel right. In a sport where the relationship between rider and machine is foundational, even minor disruptions can create significant performance gaps. This disconnect became a growing point of analysis, with experts noting that Bagnaia's riding style, heavily dependent on rear-end stability and precise braking, may have clashed with subtle changes in the 2025 technical package. Telemetry reviews suggested that while the Ducati remained competitive overall, Bagnaia struggled to extract the same margin he once relied on. The complexity of modern MotoGP machinery means that even the slightest mismatch between settings and style can create confidence issues, which then amplify across a race weekend. The uncertainty surrounding these technical troubles added another layer to the mystery. If Ducati's engineers couldn't pinpoint the root cause, and Bagnaia himself couldn't articulate what felt off, the challenge became less about fixing a specific issue and more about rebuilding a sense of trust. And in MotoGP, rebuilding trust between rider and machine is often far more difficult than resolving a mechanical flaw. The sudden swings in performance were so dramatic that analysts struggled to predict which version of Bagnaia would appear each weekend. One of the most baffling aspects of Bagnaia's 2025 season has been the extreme variability from one session to the next. In Malaysia, for example, he advanced from Q1 all the way to pole position and then delivered a strong sprint race. Yet within 24 hours, a tire issue derailed his momentum and eliminated his podium prospects. This wasn't an isolated event. In Portugal, he placed 8th in the sprint but later crashed from a promising position in the feature race. These abrupt reversals fueled speculation throughout the paddock, pushing observers to consider whether the root problem was technical, psychological, or a combination of both. Such unpredictable fluctuations are rare for a rider once known for his sharp consistency. The erratic results meant that each weekend arrived with fresh uncertainty, both for the team attempting to prepare the bike and for Bagnaia himself, who faced increasing pressure to explain these swings. Journalists noted that his demeanor during interviews shifted subtly as frustration built. Although maintaining a professional tone, his comments revealed how unusual this situation was for him. These repeated highs and lows compounded the narrative of an ongoing collapse, and as each unusual weekend passed, the MotoGP community grew more determined to understand the cause behind the inconsistency that seemingly came out of nowhere. With Bagnaia slipping down the standings, the pressure inside Ducati's factory team intensified in ways rarely seen before. As the season neared its final rounds, the mathematics of the championship told a difficult story. Bagnaia, once a favorite for another title run, suddenly risked finishing outside the top 4, a position few could have predicted months earlier. His teammate, Marc Marquez, maintained a far more stable trajectory, widening the performance gap within the same garage. The implications of this internal contrast became a major talking point across the paddock. Ducati faced the unusual situation of managing both the technical puzzle behind Bagnaia's downturn and the optics of supporting two high-profile riders with vastly different narratives. Throughout this period, team officials continued to emphasize their commitment to finding solutions, yet public statements subtly reflected a sense of frustration. With every round that passed without significant improvement, the pressure on both rider and team grew. Analysts pointed out that internal dynamics can shift quickly when expectations are not met, especially within a top-tier program known for demanding results. While there were no overt signs of conflict, the tension was evident, and observers questioned how much longer the team could sustain such an unusual and unpredictable season. With no concrete explanation available, the silence surrounding Bagnaia's struggle only fueled more speculation. Across the MotoGP community, theories emerged to explain the sudden collapse. Some pointed to setup challenges, fine margins in ergonomics or electronics that disrupted Bagnaia's riding style. Others considered tire adaptation, evolving track conditions, or subtle regulation adjustments that influenced overall bike behavior. A third area of discussion centered on the psychological side of racing. Marc Marquez himself expressed concern for Bagnaia, noting that the situation was difficult to watch, hinting that confidence may have played a larger role than technical data could reveal. Yet none of these theories have been confirmed. What stands out most is the absence of a definitive explanation. Ducati's engineers have repeatedly emphasized their efforts, Bagnaia has acknowledged the mysterious nature of the downturn, and reporters have examined every angle without locating the missing piece. This lack of clarity is what sets Bagnaia's situation apart from typical performance dips. It remains one of the few high-profile MotoGP cases in recent memory where the narrative consists of data without conclusions, questions without answers, and a rider searching for a solution that continues to evade him. As the paddock looks ahead, the unanswered question remains: how does a champion reclaim form when the cause of the collapse remains unknown? Bagnaia's 2025 season will likely be remembered not for isolated incidents, but for the broader puzzle it represents. A rider once defined by precision and reliability has encountered challenges that neither he nor his team can fully explain. The result is a storyline that has shifted from championship predictions to a season-long investigation into what fundamentally went wrong. Despite the difficulties, Bagnaia's calm professionalism continues to inspire respect across the community, and his history suggests he possesses the resilience required to rebound. As the MotoGP world waits for the next chapter, the spotlight remains firmly on Bagnaia, not out of criticism, but curiosity. Whether this season becomes a temporary setback or a defining turning point depends on what he and Ducati uncover in the months ahead. For now, the mystery remains, and the racing world watches closely for the moment when clarity finally emerges.